Teatru Redifjuxin.
Alright, mela, sinjuri nilqawkom għat-tieni Teatru Redifjuxin tal-lum waqt il-pop-up exhibition tal-programm ta' Teatru Malta, ġewwa l-MCAST. Magħna għandna lil Philip Leone Ganado, Chris Gatt, Adrian Mamo u Philip Azzopardi, sa fil introduċu likom infuskom, u sa nitkellmu dwar din il-problema. Teatru Redifjuxin diskuti dal-problemi li hija relatata ma' manifesto li Teatru Malta ħas li għandu jagħmel. Il-problema hija di, għaddunkwe mal-ewwel. The limited number of performances and lack of touring opportunities in Malta are hindering the establishment, fame and potential for contemporary Maltese plays to become classics. Discuss. So, dik hija l-problema għandna madwar sija tistgħu titkellmu bil-Malti bl-Ingliż bil-lingwi kemm tridu. Ħanieħu l-ewwel reazzjonijiet ħalli niftħu naqra il-panel. Imbagħad nimxu minn hemm. Provaw du mhux iġix minuti kull wieħed. Philip?
It's a tricky question. And honestly, my first reaction to it is kind of asking what we mean by a classic and whether something becoming a classic, being considered a classic is a goal, is something we should be striving towards when we make work, or if it's a byproduct that happens, and whether it's something that happens by the way, so whether it's something we can encourage, whether we can push, or whether it's something that in hindsight you look back and you say, okay, that's a classic, clearly, kind of know it when you see it. And number two, how does a classic get defined? Is it primarily an audience-based process in that audiences of multiple generations keep coming back to it, keep finding new stuff in it, and therefore we consider it a classic? Is it led by theatre makers who decide years later this is worth a revival, and that happens again and again until we consider something a classic? Is it based on critics? And each of those, and probably obviously it's a mix of all of them. Now each of those is going to necessitate a different answer to the question. Yes, definitely the basic fact that plays have short runs means the opportunity for audiences to encounter them is limited. I think that's a fact. And there's also the fact that audiences in Malta are in and of themselves limited. Now, the question, which I'm not going to answer in these 2 minutes, would be, I guess, is that fact on its own, the fact that a small number of people are going to see a play on its first run, limiting its ability to make an impact on audiences, on theatre makers to want to revive it 10 years later, and on critics, etc., to write about it and to give it the importance it deserves? I think that then would need more time.
Mela, you covered everything I needed to say, so I can pass this on. There are two issues għalija. Il-fatt li memx diskussjoni pubblika fuq play ġdid, fis-sens li la fil-media, publications, broadcast, etc. U laqqas bejnietna hemm biżżejjed diskussjoni fuq dak li qed jiġri. Inkluż rappreżentazzjonijiet fuq plays li diġà saru. Classics happen when we talk about them. That's the first thing. And then word gets out. Two, repeatability. Jina għadni ma nistax nifhem għaliex xi ħaġa li saret is-sena li għaddiet li għamlet ħoss żgħir ma nistgħux nerġgħu nagħmluha. Jien ma nistax nifhem għaliex dawn l-affarijiet dejjem jridu jsiru in manual jew spazju kreattiv. Naħseb aħna l-iktar pajjiż li għandu teatri fin-nazzjon kollu. Without doubt. There are so many theatrical spaces. This place has two. One upstairs and one up the road. So, but we're not using them. if we are going to talk about audience development, and you have to have audience development if you want to get discussions, if you want to get debate, if you want plays to be relevant, then we need to see how we're going to get out there. Then the other thing is we need to put on, the contemporary play ultimately talks about the now. Now, when does it become universal? Time will tell if it is still relevant or not. There are classic plays we've over the last 100 years, but don't expect to have, per esempio, il-Rowixta tal-Assisin keeps getting mentioned. But don't expect to have more than 2 or 3 in any particular decade. I mean, it would be lovely, but the reality is, within any country, you'll be happy to have 2 or 3 within a decade. Most of them will come and go, and it's fine. But the only way to test it is to bring it back soon after and to see whether it still has impact. That's when you know. But it needs to work with different audiences. So audience development is the prime thing. After that, we can worry whether it's a classic or not. Frankly, I don't give a damn. What I want to see is theatre as a place for argument, a place for debate, a place for entertainment. Zeta Flagship is coming back. It keeps coming back. It's a classic. Yes, it's based on a Feydeau farce, but it still manages to excite. And it still manages to attract. So for me, that's as much a classic as Comedy of Errors, as Aristophanes, whatever. Because let's be frank, a classic does not mean it has to be a tragedy. So that's my tuppence worth.
Li kont se ngħid jien qalu Chris, allura se ngħaddi lil Però naħseb li smajna hawnhekk, dik kienet l-ewwel reazzjoni tiegħi, jiġifieri. X'nifhmu bi play classic? Jiġifieri il-fatt li nirrepetuh jew nagħmluh ħafna drabi jew nxerduh mal-villaġġi tagħna jagħmlu classic. Chris qal iva, iktar ma tirrepetih, iktar isir popolari, iktar isir klassiku. Iktar hemm ċans. Okay. Dal-aħħar qed naraw ħafna iktar produzzjonijiet isiru, jinkidbu ħafna iktar, naħseb kif semmejt inti, naħseb ilna forsi 100 sena li bdew jikdbu plays bil-Malti, però dan l-aħħar hemm ħafna. U kif qal Chris naqbel miegħu illi ħafna drabi huwa dibattitu illi huwa importanti, jiġifieri huwa importanti li jerġgħu isiru, jiena ngħid iva. Jiena bħalissa għandi l-kariga tal-direttur artistiku tal-Manuel u nixtieq illi nagħmlu revivals ta' plays. U qed infittex qed nipprova nara x'inhuma l-affarijiet l-iktar rilevanti. Fl-opinjoni tiegħi huma dawk illi jgħidu storja. L-istorja trid tkun importanti. Charlie Chaplin kien qal li hemm 3 affarijiet importanti biex tagħmel film. Ngħidu li biex tagħmel teatru. U dawn it-3 affarijiet huma l-istorja u l-istorja. U naħseb dik tagħmel biċċa xogħol klassiku. Ġifieri jekk naraw li huma il-plays importanti tad-dinja, naraw li huma bbażati fuq l-istorja, jekk qed nitkellmu fuq ovvjament fuq text-based produzzjonijiet li huma text-based. Għandna għaġla naħseb aħna, jiġifieri kulħadd irid jitella xogħol ġdid u forsi qed ninsew iva li hemm bżonn illi nerġgħu intellaw xogħlijiet li kienu importanti. Mhux kulħadd jaqbel, jiġifieri jien naf jekk tmur Praga ħadd tisma' Kafka sewwa. Jiġifieri huwa kullum kien issa kieku Malta jien naf forsi kellha tagħżel xi ħadd li huwa importanti kien ikun Francis Zebejjer. Okay? U għalhekk forsi ħafna mill-revivals li jsiru huma tiegħu. huma plays klassiċi, ma nafx, it's the closest li naħseb illi għandna, però mhux neċessarjament. Però għandna bżonn leħen indagaw mhux daw l-aħħar snin jew 5 snin, imma tul il-medda ta' snin li kellna x'kienu daw l-istejjer importanti. Naħseb u naf li hemm produzzjonijiet kitba li hija minsija.
Kif qal kulħadd qal dak li rid ngħid, diffiċli ħafna. Ma forsi hemm żewġ punti oħra li rridu niddiskutu ftit. L-ewwel hija l-perċezzjoni nazzjonali ta' x'inhu teatru. Teatru, meta nimportaw it-teatru minn barra, daka diġà huwa klassiku mhux għax jitkellem dwarna max sar klassiku internazzjonalment. Issa dak li naħseb kien qegħdin nitkellmu hawnhekk illum huwa dwar it-Teatru Malti. Il-Teatru Malti huwa issa l-aħħar opportunità fejn l-artist jista' jesprimi ruħu, jista' juri r-ruħ Maltija. Il-televiżjoni hija medjokrità li tweġġa, iċ-ċinema Maltija ma teżistix u qed tipprova teżisti, u għalhekk it-teatru jibqa' l-aħħar post fejn ir-ruħ Maltija. Issa jiena hemm xi punti li ma tantx naqbel miegħek fiha dina hija fil-fatt li l-istorja l-ewwel nett Francis de Beyer li jiena ħadimt kważi f'kull play li għamel meta ħareġ l-ewwel darba, għalija personalment m'għadux relevanti għal ħajja tal-lum. Dak iż-żmien teatru assurd kien in voga u Francis de Beyer ta' bravu li kien u ta' ġenju li kien irnexxielu jilħaq livelli kbar, kważi ngħidlek mhux kważi, livelli internazzjonali. Il-plays tiegħu wkoll ġew maħduma barra minn Malta. Jiġifieri dak huwa l-klassiku iva, imma biex noħolqu l-klassiku ġdid ma naħsibx li rridu ngħidu nibbażaw biss fuq dak li ġara qabel, importanti li naraw nitkellmu fuq affarijiet li jirregwardaw lilna llum. U biex jirregwardaw lilna llum, ma rridux noqogħdu naħsbu isma' dan għax se jsir minna dil-play mit-sena oħra. No, jiena naħseb kien l-ewwel dover tagħna huwa li nitkellmu dwar illum. Issa jekk il-play hija tajba, jekk toħroġ tajba, u diffiċli ħafna li għax mhux dejjem anki films kulħadd kull biċċa arti hija sogru, ma tafx jekk se ssir tajba jew le, tipprova. Dik l-ewwel punt. It-tieni punt hija kif naħseb semma Chris. Aw Malta għandna forsi 5,000 nies li jmorru teatru u qegħdin naħlu ħafna flus u ħafna enerġija nippubblikaw u nagħmlu propaganda għal produzzjonijiet individwali. Jien naħseb li biex nilħqu ir-rispett u l-klassiċiżmu ta' xogħolna irridu l-ewwel nett dawk il-5,000 nagħmluhom 20,000. Dak huwa naħseb jiena ninkoraġġixxi ħafna t-Teatru Malti biex joħodha bis-serjetà dina u t-Teatru Manwel ukoll. Teatru Manwel għandna ġojjel huwa xi ħaġa vera sabiħa, għandna t-teatri l-oħra li kif semma Chris għandna ħafna teatri ma biex kollha għandhom l-amenities li għandek bżonn biex ittella play teknikament kif għandu il-Manuel Theatre. Issa jekk aħna, u anki il-producers kollha, jekk kulħadd nagħmlu effort biex inħabbru il-maġija tat-teatru li inti meta tmur it-teatru ħatara xi ħaġa ġdida li ma tistax tara fuq il-Netflix, għalhekk l-istorja hija of course importanti, il-plot huwa importanti, ma mhux in-narrattiva, għax narrattiva meta toqgħod bil-qeda fuq Netflix u tara show waħda ta' sija ta' episodju li llum jiswilek iktar minn 5 miljun biex ittella one episode of 1 hour u fit-teatru kemm tista' fuq 20, 25, 30 elf biex ittella produzzjoni. Il-Malti sjellek għafi ħabbur it-teatru, l-istorja, ma dibdom nara stejjeraw kif kemm trid mid-dar tiegħi quddiem Netflix, għalhekk iridu nikkonvinċi, għalhekk it-teatru irid ikun dwar affarijiet li ma tistax tara fuq Netflix, ma tistax tara fiċ-ċinema, huma purament Maltin għal Maltin minn Maltin. Dak huwa teatru klassiku li rridu noħolqu, naturalment dak ma jfissirx li nagħmlu plays minn barra b'traduzzjonijiet u nerġgħu intellaw plays antiki wkoll, ma biex intellaw plays antiki. Jiena kif qatt qabel minn l-ispettur law u nagħlaq bdi, l-ispettur law it-teatru staġun teatru tilef il-flus. Tilef il-flus issa jiena kont f'sitwazzjoni fejn stajt ġifieri cover daw il-losses, imma ma hemmx anki din li tiftaħ għada, we're gonna run it at a huge loss għandi 17 attur fuq il-palk, kulħadd jitħallas, imma hemm losses kbar. Isfej għaliex, għax l-ewwel net qed nikkompeti ma' ħames produzzjoni oħra fl-istess ħin u f'Malta ma nafx kemm nistgħu nlaħqu b'ħames produzzjonijiet f'daqqa. Ma jfissirx li ma jsirux, qed ngħidlek f'daqqa. U t-tieni l-udjenza ma teżistix. Mhux tal-udjenza ma teżistix imma il-gazzetti totalment abbandonawna, il-televizjoni abbandonawna, ma jridux jagħmlu programmi fuq it-teatru u wkoll naturalment u nagħlaq bdina. Iċ-ċensura li għadha teżisti hawn Malta, ċensura qawwija li tista' tneħħi plays minn fuq it-teatru, tneħħi plays qabel ma jsiru, ġifieri ma jistgħux jiġu ġudikati fuq dak li huwa verament fil-play, imma tmur fuq hearsay u daw il-problemi naturalment ifixklu ħafna.
Alright, tajjeb, mela, għax ftaħna ħafna, ħanarġa nagħlaq. Għafasna ħafna fuq xinu klassiku, però l-mistoqsija mhix klassiku biss, qed important or, mhux or relevant, iġbilli nkunu relevanti. Mhux li nkunu klassiċi biss, imma il-punt kien biex nagħti eżempju, mela jkun hemm kittiba żgħir żagħżugħ, għamel play u dil-play tajba ħafna. Jien ngħidu tajba ħafna. Saret spazju kreattiv u saret għal 3 ijiem. Rawa 3 mitruħ. Negligible. Il-kritik kellu id-diarea u ma setax jiġi dak il-wieħed l-għandna. L-oħra kienet imsifra u ma ġiex, ma tkellem fuq ħadd. Spazju kreattiv bħal Manuel 3 ijiem irid jibbukja l kulħadd, kulħadd għandu parti mill-biżness nagħmlu l-affarijiet tal 3 ijiem. Qatt dik il-play x'irid jiġri biex dik il-play intu għan-nifs li qed issemmihom. U semmejtu ħafna Francis Beyer, ma jien naraw x'għamel Francis Beyer x'għamel. X'għamel Francis Beyer għamilhom il-Manuel, ħafna minnhom, jiġifieri fuq skala nazzjonali, hemm minnhom li raġa' għamilhom bħalma kien Boulevard u mbagħad għamilha Peter Pożuttila vollew kien infissat rid ikun involut. U imma x'għamel l-iktar? Inkiteb ħafna dwarhom. Morru l-Università raw il-PhDs, raw inkiteb ħafna dwarhom. Wieħed ma jistax jitkellem fuq it-Teatru Malti mingħajr ma juża, qed nikdbu dwarhom illum qed nippubblikawhom, qed inħalluhom isiru aktar minn darba. Mario, ħan dur kontra, ħan saqsik mistoqsija daqsxejn, jekk kien hemm xi ħadd illi fit-Teatru Malti kellu opportunità f'dal-aħħar 10 snin illi jżid l-udjenzi kont inti. Għax kellek opportunità kontinwa li tagħmel xogħol bej martisti oħra bej tiegħek stess kellek opportunità naħseb akbar minn Francis fl-aħħar 10 snin, għax kellek ħafna għaddej. Imma xorta tgħid l-kumpanija tita fil-flus. U l-20,000 ma żdidu, il-5,000 ma żdidu tal-20,000. Allura fid-dinja tal-udjenza tal-Manuel, x'ġara?
Meta aħna bdejna 14 sena ilu, kollox jiġifieri tellajna li ġejjas, tellajna 22 produzzjoni li kien hemm 22 kienu 10 output ġodda. Konna waħed meta tellajna stretta, meta trajna jiena wint l-ewwel darba. Ma kienx u xejn għalli isma' dina attent għax il-Malti ma jeżistix għamel għadda biss. Kif qalu, for the record, kif qalu, mat-teatru l-aħħa għal jumej biss, minħabba l-fatt li l-udjenza Maltija ma kienx. Kien hawn teatru bil-Malti li kien again repetitions, plays li qegħdin jerġgħu in translation u anyway, ma jekk fil-każ Chris kull m'għandek taqbel u meta poġġejnija sura fuq sena stretta imlejnija 3 nights, totalment imlejnijhom. Meta mbaġġejna t-tieni waħda, ġbijat ta' xi ħud li huma kattoliċi, għalu li jisma' dikka kienet fluk, għamela darbtej, għamela ssibtu l-ħadd għax ma urġajna mlejnija totalment. Meta mbagħad bdejna nagħmlu plays u deċidejna nagħmlu 6-7 shows, ħabbilni ħanirbaħ, jiena nħobb inti nħobb, imlejnijhom for 8-9 show. Imma x'ġara, kizmin ma kienx hawn plays oħra bil-Malti. Kważi konna waħedna. Illum irridu nikkompetu kontra 5 shows totalment li qed jiġru fl-istess ħin. Malta ma tistax, m'għandix il-potenzjal li tlaħħaq ma dan m'għandix is-suq.
Ma kif ħaniġu għall-20,000 allura? U nużaw dawk l-ispazji li qed isemmi.
Eżattament. Kif nafu bil-kampanja nazzjonali li tfaħħar mhux il-produzzjoni partikolari, imma l-esperjenza nagħlmu lin-nies, ngħidu lin-nies, inħajru lin-nies li t-teatru huwa palazz tal-ħolm. Kampanja enormi, kampanja li tfaħħar it-teatru, tfaħħar it-talent li għandha li huwa kbir, tfaħħar il-diversità li għandna fit-teatru tagħna, Ingliż u Malti.
So inti qed taħseb li a national marketing campaign.
Assolutament.
Illi tgħin it-teatru just marketing jaf isolvi ftit mill-problema.
Definitely ħajibda.
Okay.
Ħajibda.
Ħawaqfek sekonda, Chris kont qiegħed toqmos u tajt m'għandux raġun Mario. Le, għajt, ċelek nitkellmu, this is the conversation.
Minn l-2000 għal 2013, kont għamilt il-riċerka, ġin semajt smajta d-tġaqbel, we had 40 multi-language. From 2000 to 2013.
Tiċċa, smara, għanna
kompli. You know, yes, it was a tangent, yes, it was smaller audiences, imma, there were new authors at the time, people like Simon Spiteri, imma kienem, ġiviri, u mux aħna bis, għax anki postijiet oħra kellhom xajdulu tagħhom, per eżempju, l-imġar kellu il-xot il-One Act Play Festival għal ħafna snin.
ħafna qabel l-2000, so?
No.
93
ġiviri, il-fattu li iva, il-manual forsi ma tantx kellu. U Istaġun Malti għamel impatt kbir għall-inqas għall-ewwel, il-mistoqsija għaliex dak l-impatt ma komplix sejjer. Ġifiri, dak huwa l-kumment li nrid nagħmel. Issa, li jkun hemm kampanji tajjeb, imma jekk dawn kampanji m'għandniex mafhum. Affarijiet bħal, pereżempju, the issue of ticket prices, okay? Il-venues, għax hemm ħafna nies li sfortunatament discount themselves, ma jmorrux il-madwer, mhux se jmorru sejkin. Għax jħossu li mhux post tagħhom. Jien naħseb li hemmhekk hemm bżonn li il-kampanja se kellha li trid. Hemm irridu nsibu mezz kif in-nies ngħidulhom isma' it-teatru tagħkom, it-teatru għalikom, issa kif u kome, dak ma nafx. Li ma naqbilx ukoll huwa li m'għandix ċans nużaw it-television. Francis Xavier kien juża t-television ħafna. U naħseb irridu wkoll hemmhekk nagħmlu ħilitna biex nikkreaw avvenimenti televiżivi. Jiġifieri, pereżempju li minflok ma jkollok dram li huwa bażikament prepared, edited, etc. Nippruvaw nużaw, speċjalment issa li għandna metodi iktar interactive, iktar interessanti, li nużaw il-television u l-internet biex nagħmlu xi ħaġa ħajja dak il-ħin fuq il-television. Per eżempju, ċuċata, din idea speċita, li jkollok soap opera ta' xahar li tella kull jum u l-iskript jinkiteb fil-ħodu u jixxandar live fil-għaxija ta' 20 minuta. Għaliex, għaxek tistgħu wkoll iddaħħal diskussjoni fuq dak li għaddej dak il-ħin anki pitċizza, ovvjament għandek il-soap opera lura għandek dak l-affarijiet kollha. Imma il-gimmick huwa li taf li Mario inti tajjeb għalihom dawn l-affarijiet, il-gimmick huwa tajjeb. Il-fatt li ħafna nies tat-teatru jispiċċaw jaħdmu fit-television huwa tajjeb ukoll. Il-problema u din hija problema serja li peress li television ma jħallasx jaqbad kwalunkwe bniedem u jgħidu isma' inti sa attur. Hemmhekk hemm problema kbira, enormi, partikolarment f'PBS li suppost huwa il-gold standard li fuq kulħadd jimxi u mu gold standard xejn u m'għandu l-ebda rispett għall-artist, sfortunatament.
Naqbel 100%.
Ok, Maria Qabel, għandna xabċipa wkoll. Ok, mela, biex jiena nifhem x'inti tajt u naħseb Mario li tajjeb insemmu is-sentek tisbaħ nsaqsi domanda l-Filip u ngħaddililek. All right, ok. Però anka qabel, anka fid-dizajnijiet kien hemm ħafna plays bil-Malti, anka l-Manuel, Fredu Buttigieg, Anthony Portelli, Alla jaħfirlu, ġifieri u plays tajbin ħafna. Naħseb li għamel Teatru Malti, jien ovvjament tinsewx ukoll li kont involut ma' kienu ukoll naħseb li definitely wieħed jista' jattribwixxi l-Staġun Teatru Malti huwa the branding of Maltese Theatre. Ġifieri jiena niftakar żmien fejn qatt ma kien isir promo. Qatt. Minn dubdew dawk l-affarijiet dawk imbagħad anke ġifieri mbagħad kien hemm żvilupp u Teatru Malta u hekk illum iktar għall-branding tat-teatru huwa ħafna ħjar. Huwa ħafna ħjar. Allura insaqsi kif ma żdidux l-udjenzi jekk għandna branding ħafna ħjar. Hemmhekk għandna domanda. Mela ħanieħu dal-punt. U mmur lura, alright, Adrian, għandu ieħor?
Mhux ma żdidux. Il-teatru l-udjenza għadha hemm. Imma jasparpaljata issa fuq ħafna affarijiet. Għandna kważi u jien tifhmunix ħażina hawnhekk, ma rridx niġi misinterpretat. Ma għandna eglat. Għandna eglat product li ma tistax tbijaw.
Ma l-oħrajn qed jinbijaw, iż-żgħar qed jinbijaw.
Per eżempju, l-unika ħaġa li pot 100% huwa Catholic Institute. Imma timmorru nagħmlu l-plays fuq il-passjoni biss. Ġifieri hemm kwalità ta' teatru li jinbih, ma dak il-teatru popolari, il-teatru li huwa.
Ma tiegħek popolari.
Kien ħafna aktar milli huwa llum.
Għadu għandek play il-kap tal-oppożizzjoni, iktar kontroversjali popolari minn hekk, ma nafx. It is inti as a artistic director of your company, you're an extremely popular mainstream. You go for the mainstream, you go for the
Again, ma nafx.
Li ma fija xejn ħażin.
Dik il-kelma mainstream hija ma nafx għaliex imma tweġġa. Iżgur li mainstream. Jiena marrina bħala professional ma rridx nitlef flus, għala fuq qed flus, imma dejjem nipprova nara is-suġġett li ħajqajjem l-iktar waħda kontroversja u t-tieni l-iktar interess. Ġifieri għalhekk kellna jiena nħobb inti nħobb li kienet dwar l-omosessualità dak iż-żmien għamilna il-play ħabbilni ħanirbaħ dwar dawk l-4 tfajliet dak l-iskandu li sar. Jieħu eżempji minn affarijiet li qed jiġru madwarna u nikkummentaw mbagħad fuqha. Aħna niżviluppaw skript għal sena u nofs sħiħa. Għalhekk jiġifieri ma nafx kif tista' tikteb skript minn filgħodu mbagħad tagħmlu filgħaxija.
Kun eżerċizzju. Ma naqbdux ma dik, il-point of order x'kien?
Il-point li l-ewwel l-istaġun beda in 2013. U minn dak iż-żmien għamilna 22 episodju. Minn għal 25 sena qabel u għandek ġuna hawnhekk fit-Teatru Manuel, il-plays oriġinali li saru għal 25 sena ta' qabel kienu 10.
Min ix-xert fuq il-numru ma sarux daqskemm.
Oriġinali, mhux ġifieri. Ġifieri, kien hemm ħafna translations, kien hemm ħafna remakes ta' plays antiki. Imma oriġinali kienu ħafna anqas billi f'daw l-aħħar 14 sena. Issa, tant l-Istaġun Teatru Malti ħalaq sitwazzjoni fejn mhux mill-udjenza imma minn sħabna, minn kolleg tiegħi stess fit-teatru li għal-teatru, Staġun Teatru Malta ħajalaq għax l-awtoritajiet ġew imnebħa li l-Staġun Teatru Malti mhux qed tagħmel tajjeb għall-Teatru Malti u għalhekk il-kuntratt spiċċa u wara 22 sena 22 produzzjoni ta' plays oriġinali miktuba minn Maltin dwar il-Maltin issa waqaf. Dawk li ridu iwaqfu irnexxielhom.
Ok, mela Adrian Mamo u ħansaqs domanda fuq għadi.
Qed nduru dejjem fuq l-udjenzi. Ġifieri dejjem qed nitkellmu. U din is-sistema ħadmet, ġifieri żmien ilu kienet taħdem di għaliex ma tantx kien hemm affarijiet x'tista' tagħmel jew toqgħod id-dar imma biex toħroġ għal xi ħaġa pereżempju nsemmu l-opra. Sewa ġifieri inti tagħmel l-opra u n-nies imorru. Ma' żmien ma kienx hemm biss l-opra, kien hemm ħafna iktar affarijiet. Però n-nies kienu jmorru għaliex mhux biss biex jaraw il-play, imma għaliex kienet xi ħaġa soċjali. Dik ma nistgħux ninjorawha. Jekk nieħdu pereżempju l-eżempju tal-Jazz Festival li jsir Malta. L-udjenza tal-jazz hija żgħira ħafna. 200 ruħ forsi li huma interessati, però l-udjenza tal-festival huwa 1500. Għaliex? Għax in-nies imorru għal ħarġa, imorru bħala background. Ġifieri dawk il-200 qegħdin qed iħarsu lejn musicisti. L-oħrajn qegħdin it's an event. Jekk qed nitkellmu fuq arts marketing, dan huwa audience driven. Jiġifieri ma nistax ninjora xi trid l-udjenza. Jekk jiena ma naħdimx fuq it has to be audience driven, imma mhux jiena nar kif ħanimponi li jiġu n-nies, dika mhix se taħdem. Ukoll ħaġa importanti naħseb dik fuq l-udjenza xi ħadd qal li ġimgħa ilu illi l-industrija tal-computer games hija darba u nofs l-industrija tal-films, tal-mużika u t-televiżjoni. Jiġifieri daw in-nies qed għandhom relazzjoni mal-entertainment jew ma' dak li qed nara differenti. Forsi li għal Chris tidħol fiha il-biċċa xogħol għax jiena jekk jiena qiegħed nokkupa ruħi bil-computer games għandi ċertu interazzjoni. U jista' jkun illi rridu nsibu mezz fit-teatru fejn ikun hemm din l-interaction li semmejt inti. Dawk rrid ngħid issa. Però nista' ngħid xi ħaġa oħra. Meta semmejna għaliex revivals għaliex. Jekk fis-session ta' qabel konna nitkellmu fuq The Crucible. The Crucible u żgur li terġa' ssir. The Crucible meta inkitbet fil-50s kienet bl-iskuża tal-witch hunt, sewa kienet kumment fuq il-McCarthy witch hunt. Fit-2001 reġgħet saret, ġifieri reġgħet ittellat New York għaliex? Għaliex kien hemm witch hunt fuq il-Musulmani f'New York. Hemm relevanza fil-remakes u naħseb Sean meta tellaħħa Crucible il-Manuel probabbli kellu raġuni għalfejn jagħmilha. Thank you.
Kienet għadha kemm wieħed Daphne she was called the witch. Philip, to get back to that question, with this context, għandi mbagħad domanda relatata ma' Mario għalik, Adrian, però irrelevanza, Philip. So, inti li żar wieħed fuq dal-panel, direttur, attur, tħoss li hemm dan nifs ġifieri b'daw l-entitajiet, Teatru Malta, Teatru Manuel, Chris li kien spazju kreattiv qabel ma kien spazju kreattiv. Tħoss li jekk tikteb xi ħaġa sew, jekk tirrexta f'xi ħaġa sew, jekk tiddiriġi xi ħaġa sew, għandek l-opportunità li dina ikollha nifs biżżejjed biex tiġi importanti, imma tgħid importanti ġifieri li n-nies waqfuk jgħidulek inti għamel dik il-pleju.
I think it's a really important question. From my perspective, I'm not in any institutions. I've never had a close relationship with a contract with one of the institutions. I've always worked on the outside. I've done individual jobs with others. And from my perspective, what the theatre scene looks like is these institutions, then some large private companies that have the force of institutions in their own right, and then a whole lot of, especially young people, scrabbling around the edges, looking for a tiny bit of funding, putting on a small production, putting on something. And these are the projects you're talking about, some of which could be great, but which are being seen by 200 people, 300 people, and vanishing forever. What I consider to be my best work as Philip is also the one that was seen by least people and therefore had least relevance, but was probably artistically, to me, the best I've done, but in any sort of relevance and importance was the least relevant and important. So I think there is a certain, or maybe it's a question more than, I was going to say there's an onus on institutions like the Manuel and Teatru Malta. But if in larger countries we talk about transfers, you know, a transfer of a production from a smaller to a larger theatre being commercially driven. If we're agreeing here that there isn't enough of an audience to sustain a commercially driven sort of transfer, but is there any reason why, I know I went to watch a brilliant one-man show at VCT last year, fantastic show, 100, maybe 200 people watched it. It has the potential for more. We know the limit, the total limit on our audience number is what it is. 5,000 has been mentioned, whatever. But the potential for this piece is more than 100, is more than 200, could be 1,000. There is a possibility for institutions to snap that up, to go, okay, 200 people saw it, there's 800 people of potential still in this piece. That is one model, one way forward for things to gain relevance on merit, on their artistic ability, tied into the commercial, but not completely driven by the commercial. That's one thing I wanted to say. Another thing is actually something you said in the first debate, which most of the panel didn't agree with you on, but I thought was really interesting. You said, why should something not run for, why shouldn't we believe that something should run for a month, for, you know, whatever. And no, and I accept, and I think Sean, I don't want to speak for you, but the way you put it forward was almost like a provocative statement as opposed to, we're going to do it tomorrow. But I have wondered this a lot, and I want to put it out there. Where there are institutions that are, and I'm not saying the Manuel should dedicate a month to something, but where we're less commercially reliant. I can't do it tomorrow. I can't put on a play for a month because there's no way I can afford to rent the space, to pay the actors and so on. But if there were an institution or a situation where it were more doable, if we built it, would they come? If instead of marketing a play as an event, and I also agree with Adrian a lot that marketing plays as events is one way to go. That's kind of the limited success I've managed to get with my Summer Shakespeares has been from marketing as an experience and an event more than as a play. But if instead of marketing like that, we're marketing as, this is what you do on a Tuesday night. This is an option for a Tuesday night. How many options are there really for a Tuesday night? Very few. You can go to the cinema. You can go out to eat. I can't think of many other things to do on a Tuesday night. If we had got into the culture somehow that the theatre's there, it's always there. And the first time you did it, you would have some empty houses. Literally, there would be a night when nobody showed up. But putting it out there, would it eventually stimulate some sort of cultural change? If it's running for a month and afterwards I'm telling my friends like, you know what I went to see? I went to see this. Oh, maybe I'll go catch it next week. Much as we do with, and Mario's absolutely right, we can't compete with Netflix. But what Netflix does is, when I meet my friends, I'm saying, oh, did you see this? Did you see that? Oh, no, I have to catch that. Oh, no, I haven't seen it yet. It's the same thing I do when I'm in London, you know, and I'm talking to people. It's, oh, have you seen that? I need to catch that. If we could somehow, in small ways, build up that element of our theatre culture, I think that would be a big step.
Exactly, and I'd really like to open this because this is, to me, what this was meant to be. Because I think what Philip just said is only possible for the state entities right now. But why not? If you're printing a poster, if you're printing a giant thing in front of the theater, why not have it there for a month? Have ticket prices maybe can go down a bit. And if the problems you all keep mentioning are we're producing way too much, why is funding always asking for new work? Why is it always asking for new? When all of Europe is talking about sustainability practice and the idea that you premiere theatre programs with a work that was done at VCT watched by 200 people. Or with a work that's been done and it's being revived, or with a work that's been, and the people doing the VCT shows for 200 people. There's a problem there. How are we sure that they get to us? Because if I'm abroad, I didn't watch the show. I have a daughter and I can't go every day. So there is a way that we need to discuss. But I think the terminology of always trying to premiere new work. Why has Staġun Teatru Malti always done new work? Why? To me, the best play of ever written was Sulari Strada Stretta. Why wasn't it revived 10 years after? Why are we always trying to do new work? So I really agree with you. Sorry for my passionate shouting. I'm going to go back down. But this is rarely mentioned. Okay, back to Mario. Hi, Colin, mic.
L-ewwel ma jfissirx li għandek tagħmel dejjem new work. Infatti, in-new work mhuwiex prevalenti f'Malta. 90% tax-xogħol li nagħmlu huwa li sar diġà jew importat. Il-maġġoranza tat-teatru fit-Teatru Nazzjonali tagħna huwa bl-Ingliż. New production, jiena titkellem fuq new bħala new script. Issa il-mandat tal-istaġun huwa li jippreżenta biss xogħlijiet ma jfissirx li oħrajn ma jistgħux jagħmlu l-għamlu li jridu. Għaliex le? Li tagħmel xi ħaġa għal xahar from a private investor, ġifieri, it's impossible. I mean, irid nbeħħ id-dar. Ġifieri, one. Secondly, it-teatru fid-dinja kollha huwa riskjus immens. Ma naħsbux, ma ngħidux li Malta biss huwa sa vera il-Ġermanja meta kont il-Ġermanja kull lejla fil-ġimgħa it-teatri kollha mimlijin. Imma dak għaliex għandhom il-kultura ta' studenti ta' nies li jħobbu t-teatru. Jien dak li nibqa' nisħaq fuq u naqtaw illi rridu nżidu in-namur tan-nies lejn it-teatru għax insolvuhom daw l-affarijiet kollha meta. L-ewwel pereżempju, nagħti eżempju, l-Aqda tal-Malti, l-Università daw biss qatt irrikonoxxew l-eżistenza tal-Istaġun Teatru u ta' dal-plays ġodda bil-Malti xejn. Il-gazzetti, speċjalment il-gazzetti ta' ċertu kulur politiku, they don't review l-Istaġun Teatru Malti, il-televizjoni, infatti din il-kap tal-oppozizjoni, u anki PBS ma rridx jagħmel xandiriet fuq il-play, għax ma somma dika storja oħra. Jiġifieri, sakemm aħna jekk aħna dawk il-5,000 nistgħu nagħmluhom 20,000 u again kif qal Philip, l-esperjenza tat-teatru, the event of going out to this tal-post tal-ħolm, xott li jibda minn fuq il-belt valletta li jidħollok ġo teatru b'mużika u jaqbes minn l-orkestra, għal-play, li rridu nbijaw mhux il-gimmick, li rridu nbijaw hija kemmu sabiħ li tqum minn fuq dak is-sit quddiem Netflix fejn ħatara l-istess ħaġa li tista' tara għada u llum toqbad il-mara toħodha ġo r-restorant jew il-mara tieħu r-raġel ngħidhom l-affarijiet ukoll ġo restorant tieħdu lunch u mbagħad tmorru t-teatru jew kellha tmorru t-teatru qabel u tmorru dinner wara, tmorru mal-ħbieb li tistgħu tiddiskutu di l-esperjenza. Mux l-istaġu, mux il-kap tal-oppozizjoni, mux ħabbilni ħanerbaħ, mux l-ikrusibil, le, il-teatru, l-esperjenza tat-teatru. Konna hekk darba, għax il-Francis Ebejer kien jimlijom, imma Francis Ebejer kien l-uniku wieħed dak iż-żmien, u ħaġa oħra li ngħidlek huwa da biex inkompli fuq l-istatistika li qed nitkellem jiena huwa from the 2013 onwards, iva saru ħafna bil-Malti. Qabel, skont statistika tat-teatru Manuel, l-oriġinali kienu under 10.
Okay, just not to blow my own trumpet, but one of the policies that we had when I was running St. James was that each play would run for 3 weeks. It would be Friday, Saturday and Sunday because those were the most popular. But it made a difference. Fis-sens li hemmhekk kellek ċans li it-kelma tiġri. And that is important. And this is why I go back to repeatability. You've done the show. You have the photos. You have the poster. You have some comments. Come back the following year and do it again. Plan from now. Where the institutions need to help, and they really need to help, is that the subsidies have gone. To book the VCT today is so expensive that unless you get a grant from the Arts Council, you cannot go anywhere near the VCT. Okay. I agree. Now, to do that, as Mario said, we need to at least have 4 or 5 of those spaces upgraded around Malta. Yeah, I agree, but they can be. That is the difference. The difference is they can be. You helped to create an amazing booklet of I don't know how many theatres, 72, and those aren't all of them, all right? Now, what has happened since? Absolutely nothing. If we could put some money into saying, look, 5, let's just have 5, that immediately, ideally, of an equal size. Why? Because then I know I can build a set which will fit into each of those spaces. And I know that my show can run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It can be followed by a concert. It can be followed by a bit of dance. It can be followed by a social event. It's fine. We want the social event there. We want the people to go and do tombola there. We want that. We want them to be familiar with the place, to make it their home. Because when it's their home, they will come and see the play there. But this is part of the strategy. The strategy has to be one where we have to stop looking inwards. Then the other thing we have to look at is quality. I'm sorry. We have people who have been trained, but there are also lots of people who need to be trained. And if I go to a restaurant u ix-xogħol mhux tajjeb, il-ikel mhux tajjeb, mhux se mmur lura. It-teatru l-istess, jibati mhux int bati għax inti ħadthom il-flus, jibati ta' warajk. Għax mhux se tmur lura. Għax lik bħal restaurant, le ma tantx ħadd gost, ma x'dwejja. We have to talk about that element. How do you make sure that what you're offering is of a certain quality? So I agree we need to market together, but we also need to be honest and say, guys, we need to upgrade the quality of our product and not just go with what we have. I agree there's a glut of productions. And I think, again, the institutions helped by giving more space for the production to be repeated over a longer period of time, rather than fill up every single week with a different production. So I totally agree with all that. And yes, the discussion is important. But, there are all these elements that have to come together.
Just
fine, tella dak li tista. Imma għamel, I mean, jew sib dawk l-40. Jew sib dawk l-40% li mhumiex.
Just a very quick point. First of all, 100% agreeing with what Chris said. Obviously, a great marketing campaign is fantastic, and we should have that sort of a campaign. But I don't believe this thing we keep saying of we need young people, like children, to learn this love of theatre. Education is a part of it, but ultimately, what makes someone love theatre is when they go to the theatre and have a good experience. And I have taken a number of people who are not that into theatre to the theatre for the first time. Very often, they have had a bad experience because the play is of low quality, and that is a problem. So we need to start from that point. Yeah.
The plays you took them, were they the small 200 people plays or at national entities? Both. But that's a big problem, no? I mean, I feel a huge responsibility, and I'm always very scared because we have to be very good. The national entities have to assure. I really agree with what you said. meta mmur nara play ħażina jiena, nidaj, sorry, għax nibda ngħid issa daw jaħasra minn qal ħanin fuq 20 euro għal darba, dak 10 snin oħra jaf jerġa' fuqhom, mhux ta' wara, għax it-teatru Malta du mhux rutina. So nibda ngħid ħambatu kollha. U dik kienet 20 euro daqs tagħna, daqs il-National Theatre. Allura, jiena nħoss li kull darba li il-Manuel, spazju kreattiv, Teatru Malta, u aħna ġifri kellna wkoll ta' inti ikollok play ħażina, problema enormi. Għalhekk irridu vera nagħmlu d-development u naħdmu fuq shows li diġà ma tajbin biex inkunu ċerti illi huma tajbin ħafna u dik responsabilità ħossaw is.
To not be like too negative about it, when we're mentioning this repeatability and so on, positive case study, Luke Saidon's Teatru tal-Miskin, which just ran very recently, where he, first of all, the quality was, I would say, not up for debate. So the show was good and had development and had the investment and had strength and was well planned out. But crucially, he found his own kind of DIY repeatability to that show, which was not... So first in Gozo, then at M-Space, then at Spazio Creativo, the other way around, with around a month in between each one. That created a hype for each production, and probably Luke would say it was planned out, right? He knew he would sell out here and then build hype for the next one and so on. In a way, early days of What's Their Names, I did a similar thing of artificially limiting how many seats there were, so we'd always sell out and we could sell more tickets, so a bit of cynicism, okay. But he created his own kind of DIY repeatability. Again, total number of people who watched the show was large for Malta, not huge, but it worked. And I think it worked because it was planned out as to be repeatable, and the quality was top notch, and he had invested in that quality from the beginning. And that's, I think, something I think we need to highlight, these positive case studies as well.
But did anyone go to him and tell him, sure, can we do it again next year?
And how is he going to do it next year? And I'd like to put in, I'm going to give you one other element, touring. We mention a lot of touring in Malta, but we get it from, I think, an English definition of touring, but England is a huge country. If we are talking about the experience of theatre, mela, aħna we're trying, we have a policy Teatru Malta, we're doing at least 10 shows now. Monday, Tuesday we did for La Rusa, imbijaw, except for the Wednesday was a bit weak. Tispiċċa, Tuesday, il-play fid-9 nofs, memx fej tikol. Il-teatru Manuel, memx fej tiħu drink sura, memx fej bħal barra tibbukja l-intermission għandek il-mejda bil-prosecco u ħadd titfajla. Sissa, issa nispera there's a master of space, iġvini btuħċab ċipa. Iġi nispera illi dik titra, ma anka spazju kreativ, inna xi 4 snin bil-bildan maluq, ma nafx xil-Madonna ħajiftu, sorry, imma fimt, iġviri, li namluha l-esperjenza, faċli tajda l-esperjenza, ma l-esperjenza tkun an economy, iġviri rridu ninpoġġu bil-qiegħda ma' entitajiet li mhumiex neċessarjament teatrali u narawx inti toħroġ u tieħu kafe mill-Cafe Leon wara Manuel. Issa, imma biex ngħidlek so touring, kienet tkun forsi iktar faċli għalluk jew entitajiet li jkun hemm spazju li tinvesti fih bħalma li għandek il-branding u tibqa' hemmhekk għax xejn ngħidu fil-verità. Jien għamilt tal-linja bil-Lex Gur eżempju, li kienet tmur mill-Mellieħa sal-Kalkar. Imma l-Malti. Imma l-fej ġiviri ġibilu mal-bib tadda, dik kienet bxej, ġiv differenti x'kienet l-Arts Festival. Imma fil-verità jekk hemm play tajba il-Kalkara u tajba. Il-Malti għandi bżonn li ġibilu l-belt biex imur jara. Iġviri din l-idea ta' touring, għax nitkellmu ħafna dwar hemm min irnexxielu, ma jien fil-fema tiegħi Malta should be studying city policies, not national theatres. Fimt, we need to see what cities, small cities are doing, or small islands, Majorca, to understand, għax jiena qatt ma mor ġo city u rajt play fil-linaħa fil-li oħra, in a city ta' 500,000. Fimt kemm Teatru Due di Parma, Teatru Due baqgħet il-play u Parma. Ma marriġ f'daqqawa, issa mbagħad jista' jkun marret Modena u marret imma ġo Parma li għadaqs Malta, Parma baqgħet ġo Teatru Due. So touring għalija it's a debate in itself. Kont se tgħid xi ħaġa.
Coming to brass tacks issa. Let's try to be now practical and let's talk business. Okay? L-ewwel kif qatt inti. Il-fatt jiena għamilt kważi 50 sena ngħix barra, ġo Toronto għandek 60 teatru li huwa kull dejjem ġifieri kull ġimgħa għandhom show differenti, imma għandek popolazzjoni ta' f'Toronto biss ta' kważi 3 miljuni. U mbagħad għandek il-provinces biex tmur tara teatru tivvjaġġa 70 mil biex tmur it-teatru u 70 mil biex tmur lura d-dar. Ġifieri li hemm il-Manuel Theatre u mbagħad noħodha il-Kalkara. Business-wise, it doesn't make any sense. But, number 2, hemm ukoll il-kapaċità tat-teatru. Fejn teatru għandek 500 seats u l-spazju kreattiv għandek 100, hemm tagħmel differenza wkoll. Ġifieri prezz kreattiv tista' tagħmelha 10 darbiet forsi, imma il-Manuel Theatre aw fdina bena 600 biljett, imma ridna nbijaw 800 biex nifdu. Issa, ħaġa oħra wkoll. Meta inti tajt bżonn nagħmlu l-affarijiet tajbin u naraw nissikuraw li nagħmlu shows tajbin. This is a pie in the sky. Of course li kulħadd irid jagħmel shows tajjeb. Min ħajiddeċiedi? Jien ħaniddeċiedi jekk il-flejt tiegħek hix tajba jew le? Skont, jista' jkun li tara jiena ġej iktar mid-dinja tal-films, all right, ġifieri, u l-produzzjonijiet li għamilna millions of them. Dara kollha dejjem ħafna drabi għamilna shows li nfaqna 9 miljun on a series u mbagħad kellna nagħlqu after the first season għax kien vroma mal-udjenza. Ġifieri, il-diżastru huwa parti mill-esperjenza teatrali, mill-esperjenza tal-entertainment. Ġifieri ma tistaqat inti tajt isma' jiena din il-play mhux se nħalliha issa għandna l-artistic director fajdini fit-Teatru Manuel u ħajkun fidejh. Issa u għandu ċ-ċans jażel li ma plays għandhom jitelgħu jekk jażel tajjeb. He's a good artistic director, jekk le ħajfalli. Imma this is always throwing the dice. Always throwing the dice. Ħadajda, jekk kulħadd jaf x'se jkun suċċess, ma jkunx hemm fromi.
I spoke about quality, not about success. There is nothing wrong with something not being successful, but there is something very wrong with presenting stuff which is half-baked, where there isn't the talent and there isn't the thinking that goes on. A genuine mistake is a genuine mistake, but bad editing is bad editing. That's the difference.
Ekku, infatti semmejna Boulevard għax semmejtu ta' Franza Beer. Boulevard was booed u kien hemm nars kalamatta bil-qeda ċabċab miktuba di. Bil-wifqa ċabċab, il-bqija kulħadd bida jbuja. Jiġifieri anke Franza Beer bata minn mal-udjenzi, imma Boulevard raġgħet saret darbtej, shorter nexxielu li jagħmilha. Anyway, għadna ħafna, ma nafx solvejniex affarijiet, jiġifieri li naħseb li ħriġna imma li hemm dix-xewqa qisu naqra minn għand kulħadd illi we produce less and better, jekk forsi nista' ngħid xi ħaġa li ħarġet. Xi domandi mill-panel? Mike.
Xi ħaġa stupida ħafna ta' ġifieri, imma fi żmien Francis Beyer ma kienx hemm daw. Ġifieri ġlieda tagħna hija kontra daw. U maħniex se nirbħuha, ġifieri. Għalhekk il-kwestjoni dan irid jibda l-iskola. Ġifieri jiena naħseb li Teatru Malta wkoll irid jeduka wkoll fl-iskejjel fuq livell nazzjonali. Ġifieri dak li qed jagħmlu l-iskejjel diġà, all right, tajjeb, imma bħala entità nazzjonali tat-teatru naħseb tridu tiddedikaw ħin biex it-teatru jsir xi ħaġa ta' kuljum fl-iskejjel, imma minn Teatru Malta trid tiġi bħala entità nazzjonali biex intuha l-importanza li hemm bżonn.
Dak li jiġi ppreżentat, l-unika ċans li għanna huwa li ppreżentaw affarijiet li ma jistaqat jintwera fuq dak. Li fuq dak ma tistax taraħ. Hemm ħafna. Per eżempju, il-play li qiegħed fiha inti llum hija eċċezzjonali, hija play ta' livell enormi u inti wkoll. Li ma tistax tara fuq Netflix. Għaliex għax hija iddedikata, miktuba, iddiżinjata biss għat-teatru. U jiena dak li għal-inqas nipprova, mux dejjem irna xejta, kien hemm vromi, żgur li kien hemm vromi, ma nibżax ngħid li kien hemm vromi, kien hemm is-suċċess huwa diffiċli ħafna. Issa, dejjem nipprova nara xi affarijiet li kif jiġu ppreżentati fuq il-palk ma jistaqat jiġu ppreżentati in film. Ma nafx jekk rajt kellek xi ċans tara il-play Hamilton, il-musical Hamilton. Il-prezentazzjoni saħalli li dik il-budget tas-set biss kien 10 miljoni, il-budget tas-set biss. Iba kif ġiet ippreżentata, lebda Netflix, għalla fuq rajta fuq Netflix u bat imma rajta fuq Netflix kif ġiet iffilmjata fuq it-teatru. Iżda imma dik it went for ma nafx kemm 20 sena ilha sejra Hamilton. Biex rajnija New York, il-ticket kien €1,000 each. I mean, dawk huma affarijiet li.
Biex ngħid xi ħaġa fuq Mike għax semmejt il-Teatru Malta, nixtiequ ħafna u naħseb illi jekk nitkellmu fuq atturi li jaħdmu aktar full-time l-hemmhekk tismorx insibu diffikultà l-atturi fil-ħodu, però Malta hemm taħwida sħiħa, peress li għamilna ħafna affarijiet f'daqqa wara 64, allura għandek id-drama unit illi kien maħsub għal teachers li huma atturi illi suppost. So qabel ma nirranġaw fi strateġija li tagħmel sens li qed naħdmu flimkien x'inhu r-rwol tal-Kumpanija Nazzjonali tat-Teatru, x'inhu r-rwol tad-Drama Unit, x'inhu r-rwol tad-Drama Center. Għażu kulħadd jivvinta rwoli tiegħu, nikdbu politika kulturali, ok, imma l-rwoli jridu jkunu aktar ċari u nista' ngħid ukoll li meta wieħed jistudja l-budget u l-politika kulturali hemm 60 miljun fil-kultura, imma qed nonfqu flus fuq 400,000 opera 3 tiem, sorry, I mean, u l-Splendid li ngħidu li huwa cultural space ħajaqa biċċiet, qed jaqa' li dat-teatri għadhom mhumiex tranġati. Il-Manuel m'għandux fejn jibni il-props. U l-400,000 intefqu fi 3 tiem fuq opera. Imma mingħajr jiġifieri mhux qed ma rridx inkun negattiv ta' però mhix l-opinjoni tiegħi. Sorry.
I think two reflections based on what you're saying. The first being to address what Sean just said about there is a huge confusion when it comes to who owns what in terms of training, etc. And there has been an aftermath, but this is something we've been discussing for years. As in, the first time I discussed it with you were Slat Arts Council. It was 2011, 2012. My question at this point is who's going to do something about it? Because every administration of Arts Council, every minister there has been for the past 20 years or so, I've had a conversation with them going, this needs to be addressed, and everyone says, yes, it needs to be addressed, and then they will not take ownership of it. So the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Education and the Arts Council will ping-pong, and it keeps going. That is not on. Someone just needs to bite the bullet, and now who that is going to be, that's a question, but we keep saying the same thing. Now we need action. With regards to what Mario Philip said about whether things are on screen or not, and also what Philip said in terms of how you present it in schools, or it's a lived experience, education. I think from a pedagogical point of view, it's very clear that even as kids, there's something you can't take away from experiencing it real time in the space, which is great. To do that, if we're looking at the attention spans and what the younger generations, and we're talking about Z, we haven't even started talking about Generation Alpha, what they are thinking about and how they are going to process information is very different. Now, you have countries in Central Europe, Northern Europe, who have started playing with intermediate theatre. Great. Where you have lots of things happening on stage so that people can shift their focus, but a lot of that comes with research and development. What does that take you back to? The infrastructure and the budgets for it. How many people actually have the money and the time to go through that process, and who is going to do that? There, I think that's an opportunity for some of the national entities to invest, even as research and development. I think that is something, we need to look at the research and development of it, not just the here and now. Intermediate theatre, it might have to be a lab, an experiment, before you can actually take it to the public. But yes, rightfully so, it has to be lived. We need to put in a lot of research and development for that, though, and we can't be looking, as Sean rightfully said, as the massive national theatres, and we can't be looking at how it's being done elsewhere, because our Maltese kids are not British kids, are not Scandinavian kids. they are totally different. So they need something that is bespoke to them and that they deserve.
Okay, to be fair here, there is the research and development grant tal-Arts Council. To be fair, naħseb li that for the private sector is crucial. Maybe having a bit of a longer term conversation when it comes to funding is also useful. I invite you also to see some initiatives we're doing, because we're also offering the associate company program now, that there's space being given to ensemble pieces. But where it comes to education, you're right, we need to sit down together and really bite the bullet. So at Teatru Malta, we're open to do it. We've been trying. We're here at MCAST now. We're living with students, so it's something that we really want to do. But we're not the solution to everything either. I don't want to sound as if we're the be-all and end-all of the theatre sector. Signori, barra li Adrian Mamo għalli li rrit jitlaq. Għax għandu xi ħaġa, she's very busy right now. No, we're all very busy. Thanks a lot. It's been a wonderful conversation. I'd really like to keep going with these subjects with you all. Thanks for coming. Fejn għal-kamera, ħana ġana mela. Grazzi tal-li kontu maħna. Dana kien Teatru Redifjuxin. Narawkom darbohra.